Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carly Hoffman, and I am the Executive Assistant at the YWCA. When asked to say, I lead with courage I think my idea of leading with courage changes every day. I'm the behind the scenes kind of woman, so today, in this moment, it's about stepping outside of my comfort zone and putting my face to a name and speaking publicly and being a part of the conversation that is deep, difficult, and brave. So we wanted to start off by letting you know that this session is sponsored by Lake & Associates. Thank you to the team at Lake & Associates for investing in women's leadership with us today. We begin this session and panel discussion by acknowledging the land that we live on, which we live and work, is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples. As we engage online, let's remember that the digital spaces that we occupy are often used as a tool of oppression toward Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities, gender and sexual minorities, people with disabilities, newcomers, immigrants, refugees, migrants, and others who experience intersecting forms of marginalization. Let's do our best to create a space where we can all safely engage. Since 1927, the YWCA has been providing essential programs and services to women and families in Niagara. We stand for gender equity and give a voice to those who are marginalized in our community. We provide advocacy, shelter, and support to women and their families as they break the cycle of homelessness, poverty, and sex trafficking for good. We are a feminist organization that is committed to social change, and we work to create an equitable community. In addition to our well-known emergency shelters, we offer 3 stages of transitional housing to support our clients' transition step by step from shelter to stable permanent housing. Along with these programs, we offer a wide variety of skills development programming to clients and schools. It is our hope that by supporting women and their families through their journey, we are able to be part of the solution to ending homelessness and gender inequity. Now more than ever, this work is critical for the wellness of our community. You can learn more about the YWCA and how you can support this work at ywcaniagararegion.ca. Sorry. We want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that our Niagara Leadership Summit for Women virtual event is designed to facilitate a safe and open space for all participants. By participating in this session, you are agreeing to following our community guidelines. You can find the guidelines on the left-hand side of the menu under Important Documents tab. We are responsible for making an inclusive environment, and we appreciate your support in doing so. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our panel today. So today you're attending the Cancer, Courage, and Self-Advocacy panel discussion. And we are joined by 3 wonderful and incredible women who have taken impossible circumstances and turned them into opportunity. Today, Holly, Candy, and Sonia will share their lived experiences to give their best advice to turning lemons into lemonade. Our panelists today are Holly Bavari, who is originally from Simcoe, Ontario. Holly is a learning and organizational development manager at Brock University who is passionate about helping people grow, learn, and tap into their strengths. We're also joined by Candy Ashby. Candy is a serial entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience working with startups in the service and retail sectors. Her love of helping others build their dreams is what attracted Candy to the challenge of personal development. Welcome, Candy. And our final panelist is Sonia Regier. Sonia is a mother, wife, sister, friend, and recently a prospective political candidate. With experience managing her mental health and overcoming a cancer diagnosis, she has fought hard for her bravery and courage. Thank you for being here, Sonia.
Thanks.
Now, without further ado, let's talk about courage. So we have a few questions for each of our panelists. And I'm going to begin with asking Candy. How were you able to navigate adversity throughout your cancer diagnosis? And how has this shaped your understanding of courage?
Thank you. Well, I think when I was diagnosed, my fight or flight kicked in. Adversity really smacked me. They say everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I had big plans. So I went from receiving the Wellspring Niagara Entrepreneurship Award in 2013 to closing both my businesses and selling my stock off in my driveway in 2015 to pay our mortgages and our bills. So we really were sent for a loop, but I'm a problem solver. And I think that's part of my entrepreneurial spirit, sometimes to a fault. I think, what can I do? So whether it was right or not, I started to make contingency plans for everybody. I planned for what's going to happen around the house. I planned for what was going to help my husband, my family, how I could bring money in. In the beginning, I think it was a little bit of toxic positivity, just telling myself, no matter what, it's going to be okay. And then realizing that it was difficult. So reflection is a really great teacher. I think when I look back, I just pushed past the fear and did what I needed to do. So my understanding of courage is really recognizing the challenge, understanding your fear, and then just doing it anyways, knowing that this is really going to be hard, but better days will come ahead.
Thank you. And that's a great comment about reflection being a really great teacher. So thank you for that. Sonia or Holly, would you like to speak to that question?
Sure, I'll go if that's all right. Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with what Candy said. It sort of, best laid plans, and then all of a sudden life smacks you in the face with something that you can't plan for or expect or anything. And it's a lot of ups and downs. I'm just sort of at the end of my, well, I'm hoping at the end of my treatments and surgeries. I just had surgery 3 weeks ago to have a radical hysterectomy. So in addition to the chemo and the radiation and my double mastectomy, it's a whirlwind. It's, you have this happen and then that happen. And then within each chunk, you have the side effects and you have the unknowns and you have the questions, and then you have the questions you don't even know to ask. And it's just, it's a lot. And I think the courage comes from, people look at us, I think, and think, oh, wow, like that's amazing. You went through breast cancer and you fought it and you're a survivor, and that's great. And it's kind of this big courage label, but the courage I find that I went through and that my family went through is all the little bits, the little tiny, courage for the day, or courage for, okay, let's get together and have a family movie night and just celebrate, mom went through another chemo treatment, or just the small little quiet steps, which helps obviously to win the battle, but otherwise you can't put one foot in front of the other, and you can't make, like Candy said, those contingency plans. And we had our kids talk to a play therapist through Wellspring. They're seeing somebody now still. My husband and I see people as well, therapists to talk to, and it's all the little pieces and the little, like, I'm just going to take a little step forward and a little step forward, and the little bits of courage that help make it look like we're like superheroes, but reality is it's sometimes it's really hard to make those little steps. So I think that's where courage can, you know, can be redefined a little.
Absolutely. And Holly?
Absolutely. I mean, certainly everything that Sonia and Candy have said like resonate for me and my experiences as well. When I was diagnosed, I was 31 and I had no family history. I had no genetic disposition or risk factors. I was active. I treated my body with respect and all the right things you're supposed to do. And I was in a great spot in my career and I had a young family. My daughter was 2 at the time. So to say it turned my world upside down is probably the understatement of the century. And honestly, like when I reflect back, the first month was nothing but a blur of tears and anger and trying to understand what had happened. And then the horrifying experience of having to share that with colleagues and friends and family and, crushing some realities there. So what I recognize is that I became very much in survival mode, and it was absolutely, as both Sonia and Candy have mentioned, it was kind of one moment at a time. I'm a huge planner and I like to have control over life. I know that's a bit comical because none of us have control over life, but I did find for myself that once I had a treatment plan and some actionable steps and answers, that helped me to really settle in and embrace what was going to happen and the path that I had moving forward. Very similar to Sonia, we get kind of labeled with courage and being brave. And a really good friend of mine who is a metastatic breast cancer thriver, I love her words. She said, "I'm not brave, there's no other choice." And that really sits with me because I've learned that in the face of adversity, we really have to have courage in our inner strength to persevere and withstand the pain, but also to embrace the unknown and accept that we can find that light in the darkest of moments. And that's not easy, and it's not linear. And so much of what Dr. Bourgeois shared with us this morning resonated with me in this capacity, because I think courage is accepting, it's also accepting help when you're accustomed to being independent. That was really challenging for me and continues to be challenging for me. And embracing my self-discovery and realizing that it is okay to not be okay. Again, that was shared with us this morning, and it taps into really what courage is in a holistic picture.
Thank you, Holly. And I absolutely love that word thriver. It really does paint the right picture, I think so. Okay, so how were you able to take your vulnerability and turn this into an opportunity to grow? And this time we'll start with Sonia.
Okay. I think, first of all, it's, and we'll probably overlap with our ideas and comments because there's a lot of similarity. It's just even being vulnerable is difficult, I think, because, we're women, we're planners, we gotta be in control. Like I'm having issues with control and letting go of it. And I mean, I had that before cancer, so never mind COVID plus cancer plus whatever else, right? And not knowing what was happening and being vulnerable and saying, this sucks, I'm hurting, I need help, I'm in pain, I don't know what to do, I'm out of control, I don't feel right. Like all those things, there's thousands more, but just being okay with not being okay, right? Which Holly just said, and it was mentioned this morning. And just, we hear that all the time. It's okay to not be okay and to let go of the control and just get through the pain and just be okay with having all these emotions. One of the things I did, and I did it more actually while I was going through everything, which started last, so the end of May, I was diagnosed, 2020. So I found a lump about 3 weeks after the first lockdown. And after I was diagnosed, I thought, well, the easiest way to let everybody know what was going on is to, do some Facebook Lives and put information out there. And I had moments when I was doing lives that I would just start crying. and I would be angry, and I just let it all out there. And I had so much great feedback from that. I mean, I'm in my 40s as well, so I've kind of hit a point of I don't care. I think you get that when you're in your different stages of life. But, and especially with this, I thought, you know what, like, this is reality. People go through this in different ways. It's not just with cancer, it could be with other things. And we need to show that it's okay to crumble, and it's okay to then show the next day how we picked ourselves up and how we kept going. So yeah, I turned it into an opportunity to grow myself and to help other people be able to be okay with their vulnerability. And just yeah, and just supporting other people, you know, on Facebook support groups. Holly actually has one there that I didn't make a connection until a few days ago, but yeah, it's just, I think, growing yourself and being okay, like getting right into yourself and being okay with that and all the feelings you're going through, and then also connecting with other people and kind of just, you know, without intending to be a role model and to help other people who are a few steps behind you see that it's going to get better and you're going to get through the crap, and then we'll make it through the other side.
Thank you, Sonia. Candy?
Like Sonia, I'm a very in control type of person, and I like to deal with everything myself. Being vulnerable, telling people that you have cancer, just watching their faces, that was the worst thing for me. I just wanted to tell them it's going to be all right. I've got a plan. I can do this. We're going to get through it. And then making myself realize that as much as I'm normally going about 110 kilometers an hour. You know, I'm on business, I'm doing my business, I'm on committees. I have at that time had a 10-year-old who was dancing in soccer and basketball, and I could do it all. And I think as women, we just put this extra cape on and just trudge because that's what we're supposed to do. And then it comes to a point where you have to admit that you can't do it all. That's where I think my vulnerability kicked in. That's where I had to ask for help. When I had to take care of my mental health and I didn't understand why I could I dealt with stress my whole life. Why can't I deal with it now? Why am I breaking down? And understanding not only that it's okay to be not okay, but it's okay to go and talk to somebody about it, to champion your own mental health, to, you know, not be afraid to tell people that this is what you're going through. You know, someone once said to me, well, why are you telling everybody? Well, that's the way I deal with it. And then after I said, I tell everybody because I want somebody to know that if they're starting to go through this and they need someone to talk to, we need to talk about it. I was very blessed with a colleague who reached out to me and said, hey, I heard you had cervical cancer through the grapevine. I was where you were 5 years ago. Reach out to me. I'm disease free, you know, and that meant the world to me. That meant going from a terrible place of fear to feeling a little empowered. So being vulnerable also allows other people to be vulnerable and talk about what they're going through. So we can share this and support each other and not just try to carry this burden on our own.
Thank you, Candy. And Holly?
Yeah, you know, Candy, as you were speaking, one of the things that resonated and I was reminded of, and it's, you know, often spoke about in the cancer community, and I'm sure in other communities as well, that your scars are a story of hope to somebody else who is starting down that path themselves. And So like reflecting back, I mean, I'm an extrovert, so my innate go-to is like, I'll just tell the world and share my experience. And so, you know, similar to what Sonia expressed, I did share a lot about my cancer diagnosis and the experiences and the journey, which gives me a whole bunch of emotions with that word. But to navigate that space, and for me, the vulnerability in that was you know, really recognizing that I had to be okay with not knowing answers, and it connected me to some really powerful and inspiring individuals within the cancer community who I'm, you know, truly blessed and honored to call friends. The other piece that I was able to leverage some of my vulnerability around was to help to bring a local chapter of the Breasties to Niagara. And the Breasties is an organization that really fosters a safe space for those individuals that are impacted by cancer. So whether you have a cancer diagnosis yourself, you're predisposed to a cancer genetic factor, or you're a caregiver, a survivor, it's an inclusive environment. And I was able to bring that here and give an opportunity for those that are impacted to have a safe space to share their own vulnerabilities. I've learned though in that space that as much as my vulnerability can be a story, I also have to recognize some of my own boundaries and what I need in those moments. And so from time to time, I have to be very honest with individuals that, you know, if we're in a call like this, I have to take myself off camera for a moment because I just need to reflect. And again, providing that type of safe space has been something that others go, oh, I didn't even know I had permission to do that type of thing. And so there's been a lot of self-awareness through the experience and just embracing where I can that vulnerability that I don't think I would have had as much passion and connection to without going through something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Holly, I think it kind of leads, your comments are kind of lead to our next question, which is what strategies did you employ to help you cope with your diagnosis and throughout your treatment?
Yeah, such a great question. I think for anyone that's close to me, they know that community is everything for me. So I recognize first off that I'm blessed and privileged to have a great community of friends and family and colleagues around me, but I really, I tapped into that community throughout my diagnosis to kind of work through the fear and the pain and the harsh realities of what you go through when you're experiencing a cancer diagnosis, or I would assume any type of major medical trauma or experience. I've also sought professional help, and I'm not afraid to share that I continue to seek that today, because the cancer diagnosis, even though I'm in remission, is a lifelong experience, and it will be part of me and who I am. It's not who I am, but part of who I am. And so leveraging that type of professional help has really helped me to understand those pieces. And then for me, I think recognizing what works well for you for self-care. So for myself, it's movement and action. During chemo, I couldn't keep up with my regular workouts. It was just too painful. But walks, taking the dog on a walk, moving around the house, taking it as a success that I could do a couple laps of the house and then sit down and I'm winded, but it's okay. I still got up and moved. That was something for me that was really helpful. And then just embracing life between treatments. We did a lot of mini family trips between chemo and surgery and radiation. And I think that living in the moment and embracing the beauty around me was what gave me kind of strength and power to get through the pain.
Thank you, Holly. Sonia?
Yeah, I would absolutely echo what Holly said. Just just kind of, I had a mindset of like, I'm going to get from A to B. I'm diagnosed with cancer. I'm going to get to B, and I'm going to be healthy, and I'm going to be fine. And part of my strategies were to sort of set some boundaries and to not not let too many negative distractions in or negative people. Like we unfortunately lost a couple people, friends and family members, which sounds so odd, but anybody who's been through this will absolutely shake their heads and say, yep, I would have thought for sure somebody was going to be there for me. They were my best friend or my favorite aunt or whatever, and they were gone. Or they took on the tears and whatever, and I had to console them. And I'm like, I couldn't have time for that. I didn't need time for that. And couldn't give my energy to that because I had to give my energy to myself and my family. So things like that, where I just recognized what I needed to do in the moment, because of course you learn so much more as you're going through it, but or what you have to do and then what you need to do because of another side effect, that whatever. But yeah, so one of the strategies I think was just avoiding the unnecessary distractions. I did join a couple of Facebook groups, support groups that were in Ontario that were great. I chose to stay flat, so I joined a Flat in Canada group as well. But so as much as those were helpful and great strategies, because you hear all sorts of things from different medical professionals, and then I feel like as women we go, okay, no, really, what is the truth about this, right? What's actually going to be helpful or whatever? How did you get through it? But there's sort of a maximum you reach in those groups too, where you have to step back. And I think Holly had mentioned that too. You have to kind of step back and take a break and just get into your own reality, and not, because you hear so many different stories and so much heartbreak that you have to leave that. And I think everybody in those groups knows it's okay to do that, because it's too much to take on and you're weighing yourself down. But we did a trip in midway through chemo as well, and we did something normal, and rented a cottage for a week. It was Thanksgiving this past year, and it was great. We just took a week and we walked and we looked at the leaves and we did normal things, and celebrated little things. And yeah, just I think that the positive distractions, because you're sitting in the chemo chair, or you're lying down on the radiation table, or you're doing that again, and what's coming, or you don't know what's coming and you're worried, and it's helpful to have healthy, good, normal distractions to balance it all out, because otherwise it just weighs on you too much.
No, yeah, that's some really great advice, and wonderful that you found communities that are so supportive and what you need, right?
Yep.
Thank you. And Candy, I'm combining your name together for you. Sorry.
It's okay. I won't tell anybody it's a password. So strategies. I tried to keep myself busy, as I always do, and failed. So I had to lean in and rely on my friends and my family. Another great, I learned to meditate through Wellspring Niagara, who I am forever grateful for. They offered a yoga class. That was something I could do at the time. And I'm going to give them a shameless plug. They have a 50-50 draw going on right now. So if you go to Wellspring Niagara, you can get your tickets. Last month's draw was about $6,000. So, and they are totally funded by community support. So my heart, if anybody wants to make a contribution and want to know that it's really going to help your community, Wellspring does. And they helped my daughter. That was one of the toughest things that I had, was my daughter. And for her to be able to go to an art class with other children who were going through the same thing, and that was so helpful. The other thing I did was I surrounded myself with really great people, and I learned boundaries, and I cut out a lot of toxic people in my life. So that was difficult as well. But yeah, just like the other girls said, you know who steps up for you, and you want to know what the truth is. Your doctors tell you a lot of things, but you know, when you talk to other women who have been there, not that the doctors are wrong, but there's just a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really does kind of run into our next question, Candy. That based on your experience, what suggestions do you have for those supporting a friend or family member with a cancer diagnosis? And you've spoken a little bit about Wellspring, but did you have any further advice on that or suggestions?
Yeah, my biggest word of advice is please think before you speak. And sometimes when you first hear about the cancer diagnosis, it takes everything away. You have nothing to say. And know from being on the other side that it's okay. Please don't say anything then. Just say, you know, I'm here to listen. I'm here to support you. How can I help? You know, a lot of times people panic and say things that they think are helpful. Someone, for example, had said to me, oh, just think of all the cute wigs you're going to get to, you know, try. And it doesn't make it lighter. Yeah. So really, before we speak, we really need to think. And like I said, you don't know what to say, that's okay, because in the beginning, we don't know what to say either. And just listening and be there. As for other supports, family and friends, we had some friends that scattered that, and I understand everybody comes from a different place and not everybody has that fortitude, or not even the fortitude, they just don't know how to deal with it, and that's okay. But to be there for other family members as well. Like I said, I was concerned about my daughter, and that was something that I had my sister-in-law take off my plate. She made sure she spent time with my daughter. There was times I've called my husband's friends and said, hey, listen, he really needs to get out of the house. So as much as we're going through it, so is our family. I was fortunate enough to have my mom move in with us to keep life as normal as possible for my family. But other friends cooked meals. I had a girlfriend who took me every Wednesday for my treatments, because in the morning was radiation, then I'd have a break, and then I'd have to meet with my oncologist in the afternoons. And just knowing that Wednesday was our day made it less like treatment and more like just her and I getting out for the day. And that really helped. Doing small things for friends. I had another girlfriend, I'm so blessed, drove past my house. It was June, and so I didn't do anything to my flower beds. I woke up from a nap and found her in my front yard planting my garden, because she just knew I didn't have it. So there's things like that. This was 6 years ago that are going to resonate with me for the rest of my life. And it doesn't have to be big. It's just a small gesture. So that's the only advice I have, is think twice, do small things, and just be there for them.
Thank you, Candy. Holly, would you have any suggestions or advice here?
Yeah, absolutely. And Candy, I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiments. I think thinking before, and I recognize it's human behavior for us to want to respond and give advice. And it's a good moment to pause and reflect, and similar. Candy had individuals well-intentioned say things, and I'm going to be a bit crass right now, I think we have that safe space to be like, well, you get a free boob job out of it. It's like, again, coming from trying to put a positive and like comedic spin, but not recognizing the pain behind that, and the realities of what I was experiencing as an individual behind that free boob job that I would have to go through. So Very similar, I think, to Candy's response. I think it's the little things that make a difference. When somebody's navigating a cancer experience or diagnosis, there's a lot of expenses. There's a ton of logistics on top of the emotional and physical traumas that you're experiencing during that time. So I think some of the little things that you can kind of give people independence, but also space to not have to think about things. So gift cards to restaurants, paying for their parking. Parking is not covered at hospitals. And even one day makes a difference, and it's a $6 out of your pocket. Finding that kind of space for them, like people doing meal delivery services, those types of things. I think, and similar to what Candy mentioned about the like family experiencing it. So if you are an individual or you know somebody who's supporting somebody going through the diagnosis, making sure they're okay. I also had a few friends that I tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, can you please check in on my husband? Because he's this strong solitude type that's just going to keep plugging forward. Like take him out for a beer, take him, like just do something so he can have that normalcy. And that in itself is a great deal of support. I would also super caution gifting cancer paraphernalia and ribbons and items, again, well-intentioned, but unless somebody actually asks for that, I would stay clear from it. For myself, if I want anything, it's going to be like, again, the organization that I mentioned, because it resonates with me. I'm not a ribbon and I don't need a ribbon attached to myself, but the mountains is the Breasty logo, because we push and ascend and decline together as a community. And so that resonates, but those are okay questions to ask too.
Thank you, Holly. And I really love that idea of, those small things that people don't think about, like the parking, right? Like that's what a wonderful thought and gesture, just to help out in the smallest way, right? I hope you're okay with this. We have a question from our audience. So I'm going to bring it to Sonia first. How did you get comfortable with change in the wake of a life-changing diagnosis?
I drank a lot of wine. And no, I'm just gonna cut at that. How did I get comfortable with the change? I don't think you ever do with anything. With what happened with our family is we had the cancer change happen during the COVID change as well. So since last March, since last April 9th, when I found a lump, it has been constant change. It's been, yeah, so you don't know what's coming. There's changes of like, even like, I've been flat since last July. I had made the choice to have both breasts removed. The right one was just guilty by association, and I didn't want to have to worry about that later. So I just had them both removed. And I've had to get used to that change. And I was okay with it for a part. And now I'm kind of, I'm still very body conscious about that. I mean, my husband loves me no matter what. But it's my own self, and it's a massive change for me. To lose all my hair was a massive change. But I think it's the part about letting go of the control of, needing to look a certain way or feel a certain way or have things happen a certain way. It's just, talking to people. You got to talk to people, other breast cancer warriors, or anybody who's been through a big medical crisis. We've talked to therapists a lot, and it's helpful. And then just trying to laugh and have some humor with it. And, because there's times to joke about free boob jobs and there's times to not, right? But having some humor to get through it, because it's going to keep happening. But doing it together with your village and your group of people is a key thing, I think.
Thank you, Sonia. That's some really, really great thoughts there. In the interest of time, I do have an important question that I would like to ask a few of you. As I'm pulling it up, sorry. do you have anything that you would like women to know about cancer detection, diagnosis, or treatment? So I'm going to ask this of Candy first.
My biggest advice is you know your body. When you think something is wrong, do not tell yourself it's okay. I had symptoms in November, possibly early October, if I really think back. And then when it was really bad in February, I went to my doctor. I was diagnosed at stage 2B, which means I had cervical cancer. So they believe it had spread to one of my lymph nodes, was slightly enlarged. Had I gone earlier, I might have missed, like I might have been early detection. I was disease-free in December of 2015. And in December of 2018, my cervical cancer metastasized to my lung. So I had a reoccurrence. Once again, I was very lucky. I was able to have robotic laparoscopic surgery in Hamilton. And they had clear margins. I'm disease-free. But had I listened to myself in October and not said, you know, oh, my period must be off, you know, that's not something that's normal for me. Had I not said, you know, oh, well, maybe it's just a one-off, I'll wait and see, I might have not had a reoccurrence. Now that's not 100%, but the other thing is I can't stress enough. Don't be embarrassed, don't be scared, deal with it and advocate for yourself. If your doctor tells you there's nothing wrong and you still think there's nothing wrong, there's other doctors out there.
Absolutely. That's really, really sage advice. Thank you. Holly, did you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest life lessons through this is that cancer does not discriminate. Doesn't care how old you are, doesn't care your gender, your sex, your creed, your race. It does not discriminate. And to Candy's point, like knowing yourself, knowing your body, the best wealth in this world is our health. And if you don't have it, it's hard to have much. And so I would, you know, echo much of what Candy said, and that advocacy for yourself. It took them 6 months to diagnose me. And had I done what I also wanted to do and stick my head in the sand, it would have been treated entirely as a breast infection left over from breastfeeding my daughter, which was not the case. And I knew something was wrong and I had to keep pushing for it. And so I think I recognize I might have tapped into another question that we have, but like the self-awareness piece is so critical, and performing regular self-care, self-checkups for those from a breast cancer stance. There's a campaign, it's called Feel It on the First, so that you know that you regularly check yourself, and that's women and men, because men too can get breast cancer. So check your loved ones, check yourself, and just be keen and aware.
Thank you. And Sonia, you're welcome if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I know we're coming up to our time limit. So ditto to what the other women said. Yeah, definitely checking and being aware. And just one thing I would add in as well, because I won't overlap with what's already been said. It's already been great. But there's you can check your medical records online, right? So you have access. There's 2 platforms, and you can get your blood work, you can get your scans, you can get everything. And although some of the words are very hard to pronounce, and we don't want to go to Google and start other problems in our head with what could be wrong, that is accessible very easily now. And that is something that, you know, Candy said, you know, go to another doctor then and say, here you go, here's the lab work, here's my imaging and everything. What do you think? Because sometimes it's human error and people do miss things, and unfortunately that can be very fatal. So just pay attention and read up and ask and ask and ask.
Absolutely. And I think all around it's, it's wonderful advice. And we as women, you're right, we know our bodies, and we know when something doesn't seem right. And to advocate for that can be really incredibly difficult, but that's where that courage comes in. Absolutely. That courage to lead and to lead ourselves and to say, I'm not settling for this answer, right? So thank you everyone so much for such, I don't know, a heartfelt and wonderful open conversation about something that, we all know is such an incredibly difficult journey for all of you to have gone through, and to be willing to share your truths and your stories here has made a big impact. So thank you again for joining us.